In the next edition of It's About Money, my guest will be Chuck Baylis. He is the founder and executive director of the Military History Society of Rochester. It's going to be a great conversation about our past. Hello and welcome to another edition of It's About Money. I'm Nannette Nocon and thank you for joining us. I'm thrilled to have our next guest, and that is Chuck Baylis. He is the founder and executive director of the Military History Society of Rochester. Great to be talking about Rochester's past military. Great to have you here, Chuck. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, wonderful. Tell us a little bit about the history of the society, of the Military History Society of Rochester.
Well, a number of years ago, I had done some Civil War reenacting. And when we were out doing our fundraising, I'd put together a small exhibit, of military items. And we got quite a bit of interest in it, people asking questions. And when that particular phase of my life was over, trying to decide, how to present what we had already put together, and a space came open at Artisan Works. And so it was kind of a trial balloon. And we were there for about a year in a very, very small space. And then a space at the Anderson Art Building came open, which gave me the opportunity to really expand out. So we were in our 16th year there. And we started off primarily talking about Civil War. But then over the years, people kept asking about, well, what else do you have for military? And so now it's grown into a collection that comes from War of 1812 up through current times. And we have our focus on what happened in Rochester. Now, of course, everything we have is not local, but a great deal of it is. And we have many, many stories that relate to Rochester and Rochester's history.
That's great. I'm excited about these artifacts that you brought. Maybe we could talk about them. Can we do
Sure. The first one that earliest one that I brought is a Civil War cartridge box, and that would have been worn by the soldiers, and that's where they kept their, the bullets, and the powder. But this was made down on State Street by a company called Pritchard & Brothers. So even from early times, there was a lot of support from the local community. And of course, that has transformed through the years, through World War I especially, where Bosch & Lomb was the first company in the United States to make usable optical glass. Up until that time, it had all come from Germany. So of course, World War I breaks out, that stops. And so that was really why there were so many optical companies located here in Rochester. And it was really a hub of employment in that industry during World War I. This image, this is one of Rochester's really great stories. His name is Clarence Ball. He was 42 years old when he led the local Marine Company into World War I. He served in quite a few battles. These are his medals, that he was awarded during his time of service. Wow. But apparently he always had military in his blood, because here he is as the captain of his grade school military company, School 31 in 1891.
Oh, amazing. Wow.
And on he went, to greater service.
That's amazing. And then we have this box here.
Yeah, this box is a folk art or trench art box that was carved by a POW that was interred at the Cobb's Hill internment camp during World War II.
Never knew.
There were actually 3 in the area. There was one in Hilton, there was one in Webster, and the one in Rochester. And this probably would have been made so to sell, to the locals, to raise a little extra money for food or cigarettes or something like that. But many of the internees actually came back to Rochester after the war, because what was a young male going to do in either Italy or Germany?
Sure.
Again, there just wasn't those opportunities, and many of them had worked on farms or worked in industry and actually made acquaintances here. So a large number of repatriated foreign fighters actually came back to Rochester.
I see. And this one is so intriguing to me. I'm almost afraid to hold it, but
Yeah. So this is a hand grenade. But what is surprising about that, it was actually made by Kodak. You know, most people don't think of things like this as what Kodak would have made.
yeah.
But beyond the hand grenades, they also made hundreds of thousands of artillery fuses. This particular one was on contract by the OSS. What they wanted was one that would explode on contact as opposed to being timed. The normal grenade, you pull the pin, you got 5 seconds before it goes off. This one, they wanted one that would explode immediately.
So how do you work that? Oh my goodness.
Pull the pin, and now it's armed.
Yeah.
Of course, the problem with that is if you happen to drop it in front of you, there you go, right? And so Kodak tried a number of different methods, to try and make it reasonably safe, but were never real successful, and so it was never really introduced to the general military force. Its name was the T-13, although it had a nickname, and it was called the Beano. And according to urban legend, how it got that name was during testing, somebody had thrown one up in the air, came down and hit him on the head, so he'd be no more.
Oh, Beano. Tragic back then, but now can be entertaining.
Right.
And then you've got the beret.
And this one, the Green Beret, this is a Green Beret that was worn by Gary Bykirk, a Medal of Honor recipient from Vietnam, 5th Special Forces. His camp was overrun by the VC, and on numerous occasions he went out and brought back wounded. In fact, he was wounded himself 3 times, and on those last trips he had to have his sidekick actually pull him out and pull both of them back, the wounded and himself back. And for his actions, he was awarded the Medal of Honor. He died about 2 years ago. But again, we have his uniform, and a lot of his personal effects, and those were actually given to us by the family to stay here in Rochester.
So I was going to ask how you acquired the artifacts, and some of them are donated, like in this case.
Yeah, we do get quite a few donations in. It's mostly uniforms and a lot of personal memorabilia, because it just seems like today, the next generation after just doesn't have the interest or connection to those folks that were in military service. And that's actually one of the reasons we really have put together what we did, is because now we have a repository for all those things, instead of them either going out to the curb or going to an antiques dealer or being shipped out of city. So again, we really encourage people, if they have things, please bring them down, because again, we have the facilities to take care of them and to preserve them for future generations.
Tell us the address at Anderson Alley.
Yeah, it's 250 North Goodman Street.
Okay.
Yeah, that's on the corner of Anderson Avenue and North Goodman Street, right next door to Village Gate.
And across from the Memorial Art Gallery, right?
Yes, yes, and we're up on the 2nd floor on the east end of the building.
That's great.
We're open every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from noon to 4. We don't charge admission fees. We ask for donations. But again, we really feel it's more important for people to come in, than to turn away for a $5 fee or something like that.
Sure. Oh, that's great. And in terms of the objects, do you have them all displayed, or do you have some of them in storage and then rotate the exhibitions? That's because could be a lot of work.
Yes and yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we have over 3,000 square feet of exhibition space.
3,000?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
And we we have thousands of items on exhibit. Again, most people who come in are just very surprised by the breadth and the amount of the collection itself. we've had many, many people who have come in who have said that this is probably one of the best small-town museums or small museums that they've ever visited. But we have a great selection. One of the areas that we've really worked pretty hard on is Rochester's contribution to military. And so we have one whole section of products that were made, by industries in Rochester for the military. So during World War II especially, everybody made something.
I was going to say, because there was a law that made industry do something for
there, of course, the rationing took care of a lot of that. But again, many, many contracts were issued. And for things that were very ordinary, the building that we were in was the E.P. Reed Shoe Company. During World War II, they made women's army shoes.
Oh.
And there was another company, the Menahan Shoe Factory. During World War II, they made leather flight helmets and parachutes. One very small company called N.J. Carl & Son, made these real small brushes that were used to clean the 50 caliber machine guns. And they were the only one in the country that made them. So without them, all of them would stop working.
Yeah, I love it. So the artifacts that are there, the objects that are there, has relation to Rochester, whether it's made here or worn or owned by somebody in the community.
A great portion of them are, but there are many artifacts that, of course, were not Rochester-based.
Okay.
But so we've tried to build up a good general collection, of military artifacts. And again, our focus has been on trying to get things that are unusual, things that people really haven't seen too much. Okay. And I think we've accomplished, that pretty well.
That's great. So you have 3,000 square feet. How many objects do you have now? Do you even can count?
I would say we probably have between 3,000 and 4,000 out.
Oh, okay.
We also have a library of over 3,000 books on military history as well.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. So how did you even get interested in doing all of these? I know it's your previous life was different, but then now, how did you get into it?
Well, I served in the early Vietnam era, 1963 to 66, before all the buildup. And it was a very interesting time. Got some great experiences, and always had kind of a bent towards military, things. And had started collecting some things in the 1990s, and then it just kind of grew. And once I did the reenacting and put together more things, then that really was what started it. And like I said, getting that space at the Anderson Arts Building just allowed me to actually really continue the growth of the collection.
That's great. So do you have a lot of volunteers? How would you?
We do. We've got a number that are really our regulars. We've got several who come in on a regular weekly basis, and then we have others that kind of come and go. I think we've had a lot of interns. In fact, the fellow that is really kind of my second in command there is started with us as an intern from Nazareth. He was American Studies, got his master's degree, and actually did his thesis on some items that we have in the museum itself. But we have high school kids, who come in, college, we've done college internships. I think one of the ones that we really say is one we're very proud of is we had a young fellow whose father had done some work for one of the artists in the buildings, and he started coming in. And then he decided he wanted to volunteer. So at age 7, he started volunteering with us. Oh,
isn't that wonderful?
And by age 9, he was actually doing tours.
Oh my God, what an opportunity for him to learn a bunch of skills, right?
And through that, he decided that he wants to go to West Point, and he's now a senior in high school and well on his way, and will probably make it into the academy.
Oh, what a difference your organization's made.
Yes.
Oh, that's remarkable. Thank you for sharing that. This has been fun. We're going to take a quick break. My guest is Chuck Baylis. He is the founder and executive director of the Military History Society of Rochester. We'll be right back.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
And we're back. I'm Nannette Nocon. It's about money. My guest is Chuck Baylis. He is the founder and executive director of the Military History Society of Rochester. Did I say that right? Yes.
Yes, you did.
Thank you. Thank you. So tell me about this young man and who has become a volunteer from a young age of 7, became a guide now, and then I was preparing to go to a military academy. Right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we got a lot of younger folks, who come in, and again, some of them are extremely knowledgeable. Right now, we've got another 4th grader who comes in, every other week or so, and again, knows a lot, is willing to do, whatever we kind of ask of him. But a lot of younger people that come in seem to know quite a bit about, at least can identify many of the objects because of the video games that they play. Mm-hmm. So they know the names of the weapons. They know what rifles are what and what era they come from. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's very, very surprising how much those games actually have taught the kids. But it's just one thing that, again, they get to see the real thing instead of just seeing something that's that's on screen.
Yeah, I love it. I love that the young people are so much into it, and you've certainly done a great job. So have you ever wanted to expand beyond Rochester's military history? I mean, the artifacts that you have extended beyond the Rochester connection, and
they have. Growing. And again, some, like I said, what we've really tried to do is bring in things that are iconic to the military. I mean, as an example, but again, it does have a local connection. We have, a fully complete Norden bomb sight, which was the precision bomb sight that was used during World War II and all the heavy bombers. But Bosch and Lomb and Kodak both did work on those. Oh, wow. So again, it's many things that were not necessarily produced 100% here, but again, have connections to Rochester. But again, not everything does.
Mm-hmm. So your organization not only focuses on having the exhibitions, but you've done some terrific work. But one of the things that come to mind here is that let's see here, the artillery that's in Washington Square in Rochester. It's kind of a long thing. It says it's presented by the Italian ambassador Vittorio Rolandi Ricci that was brought to Washington Square in June of 1921.
Yes.
So talk to us about that and what's been happening there.
Well, that gun was interesting because that was actually a gift to the city of Rochester because of all the Italian Americans who not only fought with the American force in World War I, but also went back and fought in the Italian army during World War I. Mm-hmm. And there were over 23,000 service people who served during World War I. So the gun was brought here and was presented, in a huge ceremony because in appreciation of helping to rid Italy of the German scourge. And over the years, it sat there and really, and its wooden wheels, metal carriage, but the weather just ran havoc on it.
Sure.
I mean, the wheels were pretty much rotted out, the holes in the carriage itself. And finally, the city decided just to take it down because they were afraid that somebody would get hurt or it would actually just fall apart. So we made inquiries with the city, and over a period of 5 years before we finally got some traction. We originally had thought about trying to raise money to do the restoration, but in the end, the city actually came forward and spent the money. So we arranged to have that sent down to a restorer down near Atlanta. And again, that was brought back and was reinstalled, and now is in great shape, sitting out, in Washington Square Park, again, for the public to enjoy.
That's great. I walk by there all the time going to Jiva. Now I know a little history about that. That's beautiful. Thank you. And I know that light is showcased with the light on it in the evenings. And it looks really wonderful.
Yes.
So great work.
A lot of people missed it when it was gone.
Yeah.
And many people were glad to have it back.
Yeah, well, I think it's nice. A nice situation there. So you said that the hours for the museum, do you call it museum or what?
Well,
or exhibition space?
yeah, we can't call ourselves a museum because New York State has a special category for that. We're a historical society with collections.
Historical society with collections. Okay,
Right.
Thank you for
So our
clarifying.
collection is housed
Oh, okay.
at the Arts Building, and we're open every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from noon to 4. And on the first Friday of each month, we're open till 9 o'clock at night.
Got it. So are you thinking ahead, like what's the next step? You've got additional volunteers, but you'll just keep working at it because it's your passion, and then have somebody else take over later when you say, okay, I'm done with my work here, but hopefully that'll be a long time from now.
Well, I hope so. Now, when we first started, really made a decision not to try and go out and burn any bridges trying to raise money with an idea. Now that we have the collection established, and again, it's a very good collection. Now we're in the phase of trying to raise money because we would really love to have our own building. I mean, we have probably more than enough artifacts for 3 times the space that we have.
Yeah. Right.
And sooner or later, we hope that we can attract some benefactors that will help us to to move that dream forward.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's really wonderful. So right now, how do you keep the organization sustainable? You gotta have money to keep it running.
Yeah, we do. We have a couple of people that help us out, but a lot of it is pretty much self-funded.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, because you don't charge admission, so it's just a
Right.
donation that people make. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, admission wouldn't sustain us anyway.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. That's fantastic, and I hope that others. Do you have a fundraising event at this time, or mostly from word of mouth?
We don't. We are making plans to do some things in 2025, and again, that leading up into the 250th anniversary, of the country, because again, the military was there from the beginning. So we're making plans for the upcoming.
Oh, that's a couple years, right?
And yep,
Yeah.
2026.
2026. Yeah, right. Of course.
250.
Yeah, right. I came to Rochester when the 200th birthday of the nation, so that's kind of neat. But anyway, so it's cool. I'm glad that sounds like a nice event space for people with
Yes.
military connections to host events, and could raise some money there. And I hope that our show today gives you some recognition for people
Well,
to
I hope so
know
too.
about it. Yeah, but you have a website as well?
Yes, we do.
And what's-
RochesterMilitary.com.
RochesterMilitary.com. That's fantastic. This is an amazing situation, and I'm so intrigued by all this artifact. This particular hand grenade is like, wow.
Yeah, like I said, that surprises most people.
Yeah, and for Kodak to have made that, it's
Right.
amazing,
Yes.
But it was obviously not sustainable, and that wasn't their product that they were making back then. So,
No.
Yeah. And do you train people on how to care for the artifacts? How do you, or just kind of?
We do. We have procedures, in place, again, on how things are handled. Although we probably don't do things up to the standard of many of the museums, because everything that we have is is out in the open. And, you know, with some items, we don't mind if people hold them.
Sure, sure.
You know,
Right.
most museums won't even think of that.
Yeah, right. They have to cover it just to
Right.
make sure it doesn't fade and all that stuff. yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
But again, most of our stuff is not paper goods, so
Yes.
you know, those are the ones that are probably the most fragile.
Got it. And when these come to you, like this, for example, with these medals, did these come framed already, or do you?
No,
Oh, you
no,
have
no.
them.
We put all. Usually, we just get, you know, things that are kind of packaged up, and then, you know, we will do the exhibits,
I see.
you know, on how we feel that they could be best shown.
I see. So that's how you put together these pieces. When you have an exhibit that you wanted to do, you kind of assemble them.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. One of the big projects that we're working on right now is the Monroe County Airport is redoing the Veterans Lounge.
Yes.
And we are responsible and will be doing all of the artifacts that will be inside that lounge.
Nice.
It's going to be dedicated to a fellow named William Perkins, Jr., who was born here in Rochester. His father worked for Kodak, but they moved to California. He enlisted in the Marine Corps in California, became a combat photographer. He wanted movie school, so they said, if you want movie school, you got to volunteer for Vietnam, which he did.
Mm-hmm.
And very early in his deployment, he was out with his unit in Operation Medina. They were ambushed. He's in a foxhole with 3 others. Hand grenade comes in. He hops on top of it, and of course he's killed. So he was awarded the Medal of Honor posthumously.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, the whole veterans area is going to be dedicated to him. But it's going to be artifacts from Civil War going forward. You know, as Rochester's military heritage.
Oh, that's cool. I can't wait to see that when I go to the airport.
It'll be open sometime early next year, sometime before March 31st. We don't have a date for it yet.
2025. Okay, great. Oh, that's something to look forward to, especially
Yes.
for our military travelers, you know,
Yes.
our families of the military. That's great. That's terrific. And do you get like a lot of phone calls, inquiries? How do?
Yeah, we do. You know, we do get people who call and want to know if, you know, we have any information about somebody or something. You know, we've gone through all of the volunteer rosters from Civil War, and we have over 18,000 or 16,000 names of men who enlisted in
Yes.
Monroe County.
Oh, wow.
And so again, we provided that information to a lot of folks.
Yeah.
In World War I, there was a book that was actually published by Monroe County that lists all the veterans.
Oh, wow.
And most people don't even know about that, but it gives the date of enlistment, where they lived, and what their deployment was.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of people have been very surprised to find out, you know, about their ancestors. In fact, somebody that came in, we looked up his great-grandfather and wasn't there. And he said, you know what? He said that there was always a rumor that it was spelled differently. We looked it up, and there it was. It was in that different spelling, not
Oh.
one that they had used during the rest of their lives.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, Chuck, this has been a delightful conversation. I really appreciate you educating me and our audience about the Military History Society of Rochester, and great to know that your tentacles reach into community locations, not just the exhibition space. So,
Yes, absolutely.
I wish you the very best, and I hope you continue to get wonderful volunteers who get inspired by the collections you've put together.
I thank you very much.
Congratulations. So thank you. My guest has been Chuck Baylis. He's the founder and executive director of the Military History of Rochester. I'm Nannette Nocon, where it's about money. Until next time.